So, did you catch that discussion by Richard Wolff on how Western capitalism is basically killing itself?
Yeah, I did. It's a bold claim, and it really got me thinking about all those internal contradictions he mentioned.
Absolutely. It's like he's pointing out that capitalism, by its very nature, carries these unresolved issues that just keep piling up over time.
Right, He argues that these contradictions, like wealth concentration and perpetual inequality, have been ignored for decades even though they're critical.
Yeah, it's almost like a ticking time bomb, you know? The system creates problems it just can't help but ignore.
Exactly, and that's what makes his point so resonant. I mean, if we keep ignoring these issues, isn't it inevitable that the system will implode on itself?
Mm-hmm, definitely. It's important how he points out that capitalism's internal fight between profit motives and public needs is not just a theoretical issue, but something that impacts every layer of society.
And what's striking is that he's not just talking about economic theory, he's highlighting actual societal consequences, like the erosion of middle class stability and political unrest.
Exactly. It's like, capitalism's drive for profit has become so powerful that it has eroded the foundations of democratic decision making, hiding problems under a veneer of growth.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it ties into how these systemic issues force a lot of policymakers into a corner. They're managing crises rather than solving the underlying problems.
Right, because by ignoring or managing these issues superficially, the real contradictions like inequality and unsustainable debt just keep building up.
True. And the video really challenges us to consider how these internal conflicts could ultimately lead to a form of self destruction in Western capitalism.
Yep, it's not just a market failure, it's like a structural crisis. I mean, how do you ignore the fact that the same system designed to generate wealth ends up undermining societal stability?
Exactly. And it almost seems like a loop where the solutions or the attempts to patch things up only deepen the structural wounds.
That's true. It's like he's saying that if we keep prioritizing short term gains over long term sustainability, we're essentially steering the ship straight into the iceberg.
I like that analogy. A ship heading into an iceberg. It makes you wonder if there's any way to steer away from that silent but sure disaster.
Well, that's the big debate, isn't it? I mean, should we try to reform capitalism from within, or are we destined to let it collapse and rebuild something entirely different?
Yeah, that tension between reform and revolution is super compelling. But tell me, do you think Wolf offers any pragmatic solutions in his talk?
He does hint at the need for systemic change, focusing on addressing the contradictions head on rather than merely patching them up.
Right, I see. That's interesting because if we challenge the status quo too aggressively, wouldn't that in the short term lead to massive instability?
That's a fair critique. I mean, there's a balancing act. On one hand, you need bold systemic change. On the other, the transition has to be managed carefully to avoid chaos.
Yeah, and those kinds of transitions historically haven't always been smooth, have they? It makes you think about there's a risk inherent in any big overhaul.
Exactly, which is why his perspective on these contradictions is rather sobering. It's like a warning that if we continue on our current trajectory, we might be signing our own economic death warrant.
It's scary, but also a call to action, right? I mean, if the writing is on the wall, it's up to us, well, up to policymakers and society to address these issues before it's too late.
Absolutely. It's as if the system is screaming for a fundamental overhaul, and any minor tweaks won't do the trick.
Yeah, exactly.
Seriously, major rethink is needed.
I totally agree, though I wonder if his argument might be a bit too deterministic. Isn't there a chance that by highlighting these problems so starkly, we might unintentionally reinforce a sense of inevitability?
That's a good point. Sometimes a very stark diagnosis can create a sort of fatalism, which might discourage actual diligent reform.
Right, because if people think the collapse is inevitable, they might not put in the effort to try and save the system.
Exactly, a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. But I think Wolf wants us to, see the cracks so clearly that we can't ignore them any longer.
Yeah, that urgency is palpable. It's like if we're not going to face these issues head on, then we're just, well, letting history repeat itself.
Absolutely. And another interesting aspect is how this conversation ties into broader geopolitical dynamics. The internal contradictions of capitalism might also influence global power structures.
Right, because a weakened self destructive system on one side can have massive ripple effects across the world, affecting international alliances and economic stability.
Precisely. It's like a domino effect. The internal crisis of a major economic system can destabilize the global order.
Yeah, exactly. And you see that echoed in some of the broader geopolitical discussions these days. All these shifts might fundamentally redefine what power looks like in the coming decades.
Exactly. It's a sort of recalibration of how global systems operate. It's not just about economics, but also how societies choose to structure themselves in the face of such crises.
So, in a way, Wolf's argument is both an economic and a political diagnosis, right?
Yes, and it's interesting because it forces us to ask some really uncomfortable questions about the sustainability of a system that's been taken for granted for so long.
Exactly, and if we really unpack that, it means perhaps a transformation of social values, not just a shift in policy.
Right. It's like saying the very foundation of Western society, which has long been tied to capitalist success, might need to be rethought.
Yeah. And that's the real challenge, isn't it? Changing not only economic practices, but also cultural narratives and deeply ingrained beliefs about success and progress.
True, it's a multidimensional problem. You have to address economic inequality, political disenfranchisement, and even environmental issues all at once.
It definitely leaves you wondering if, with so many moving parts, the current path is even viable in the long term.
Exactly, and that brings us back to Wolff's crucial point. If the contradictions are left unaddressed, the system's self destruction is almost built into its design.
Which is both a stark warning and a call for radical rethinking. I guess the big takeaway is that change isn't optional, it's necessary for survival.
Absolutely. And even though his analysis might sound a bit doom and gloom, it also serves as a reminder that ignoring systemic issues only makes them worse.
Yep, right. And while I totally get his perspective, I also think we should consider that, historically, systems do adapt, even if it's painfully slow. There's room for cautious optimism here.
That's a fair counterpoint. It's like we're caught between the urgency of reform and the unpredictable nature of systemic change.
Exactly. And while his view might push us toward expecting chaos, it shouldn't paralyze us from pursuing constructive reform.
Right, because ultimately, recognizing the flaws is the first step toward fixing them, even if it means challenging long held beliefs about how the system should work.
And that challenge might just be the catalyst we need for real transformation, if approached thoughtfully.
Precisely. In the end, the discussion isn't just about economic decline, but about reimagining how we organize our society for a more equitable future.
Well, this has been an eye-opening conversation. It really makes you think about the inherent tensions in a system we've long taken for granted.
Definitely. It's a reminder that every economic model has its faults, and it's up to us to recognize and address them before it's too late.
And that, in a nutshell, is probably why discussions like these matter so much. They force us to question and evolve our understanding of progress.
Exactly. It's like the conversation itself becomes a stepping stone toward creating a more balanced system. Thanks for diving into this with me.
Anytime. I always enjoy unpacking these complex ideas, and it helps to get perspectives like yours.
All right, here's to hoping we can see meaningful change in the near future. Until next time.
Cheers to that. See you next time.